Oh man, here we are. Am I recording? Yeah. Yep. All right. Guys, here it is. After years and years of people asking me to start a YouTube channel, here it is. Here's the channel. I don't know if it's what everyone anticipated it would be. I've gotten some interesting feedback from people when I tell them I'm starting a channel, and they're like, "Oh, what are you starting it about?" And I'm like, "Well, it's going to be like a video podcast." And they're like, "Oh, so is it going to be about like gaming?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, is it like about food, or is it about music or movies? Is it music theory?" No, man. And also, yes, it's a little bit of all those things. Figuring this thing out as we go. I spent, I don't even know how long, coming up with an outline for this episode, scripting it and stuff. And then I'm probably just not going to follow any of that. I think this is all going to be free flow. I've got an intro. I got topic number 1, topic number 2, and topic number 3. I don't even know if I'm going to hit any of those, or even in the order I have them listed on. This is all going to be off the cuff. I'm trying to not cut very much, so maybe I can make this a cutless episode. Who knows? I had it starting out with a life update, but I don't even think I'm going to get to that yet. I think I want to talk a little bit about this. Why a video podcast as opposed to a proper YouTube channel? Why not just have a podcast? I don't think I want that either. I think I want something visual, something that I can explore the space. I could stand up if I want to. I could walk over here. I could show you my Lego T-Rex. I could talk to you about why this Chief head is turned backwards. It's because the Chiefs are playing the Niners in the Super Bowl. And I can't have the Chief facing forward when I'm going for the Niners, You can't do that on a regular podcast. People can't see the Chief. People on the video might not even be able to see the Chief. But that's you know what I'm saying? You could see my Van Gogh skeleton smoking a cigarette. Can't do that on a podcast. Can't do that on video. This giant TV with the Apple, hopefully royalty-free videos in the background. Can't do that on a podcast. But yeah, I want to use a TV. I want to have stuff on the TV if I can, more than just exploring Wuling Wan National Park in China, but maybe something if I'm talking about a book I read, I could put the book on the screen, or you know what I'm saying? Can't do that on just a normal podcast. I want this to be a visual experience. It's not just listened to. But I mean, this is all new for me. I'm gonna be learning as I go. I'm gonna have reoccurring segments every week that I'd like to have, talking about certain things I do every single week. Get consistent. Maybe do a show and tell where if I find something really cool out in the wild, then I'll bring it, on the show, and I'll show you some cool thing I got. Who knows? But I know that I want to tell stories. I want to inspire people to be more present in their life. Something that's really been important to me recently is being more present in my life, and not in just the, you spend more time with your wife and type of ways, but really being aware of a moment when I'm in it. This is something. This is something that's going to be, segue. I'm reading Matthew McConaughey's memoir right now, and I'm actually going to talk about that in the next episode. I'm going to go into it deep, but something that he said in that memoir that I genuinely cannot get out of my head. I think about this every single day, and I think that's kind of what's inspiring this podcast more than anything, is this one simple line. He said it this way, but I think the analogy of how he presented this thought is what actually affected me, not just this one example he used, but he was like, words are momentary, but intent is momentous. And that kind of just sounds like a funny bumper sticker, right? Like a random cliche. But if you look up what momentous means that this is something that affects future events. This is something that literally affects the future. It has momentum to it, which means that it moves on and affects the future. And I want people to be more aware of when they're in momentous situations. Momentary stuff, whatever, that stuff comes and goes, right? Someone cuts you off in traffic, that's momentary. Obviously, the way you respond to that can make it momentous. It could ruin your whole day. It could change the driver that you are for the future. But I want people to be more aware of momentous occasions in their life, which I think that's most people know the word momentous from the term momentous occasion. But I'm trying to be more present in my life so that I can identify momentous things and figure out how they're affecting my future, hopefully only for the better, not for the worse. But yeah, I'm going to tell some stories. I'm going to have reoccurring segments. And I think there needs to be more positive content out there. There's something that I want to do every week that is going to like help keep me accountable. And I'm hoping to inspire you guys to be more aware of these 3 things that I've identified for myself as like my paramount, absolute, monumental things for my life. And I'm going to talk about those at the end of the podcast because I want to end with that. I do know that. But that's the goal of this podcast. Spread some positive news, tell some cool stories, talk about a book I read, talk about a movie I saw and how it affected me, the takeaways that I got from it, and just like help encourage people to live a more intentional life. I want to talk about the ways that I fuck up, the ways that I fall short in life. And I'm probably not going to cuss on this podcast. I do cuss in my personal life, and I think a lot of you guys who know me well know that. And so I want to be honest and transparent about that. But I also want this to be like a family-friendly and like a very approachable podcast. I want like younger people to be able to watch this. So I'm not monetizing this. None of this. Like I had MF Doom in my intro song, right? Like I'm not going to make any money off of this podcast. I don't want any of this to be motivated by making money, and I want this to be accessible to everybody. So I'm not trying to be fake and pretend like I don't cuss. I'm just trying to provide an environment to allow people of a younger generation to hopefully grab onto something like this and be inspired by it. So I'm going to either bleep out when I do cuss the few times I might, but in general, I'm just not going to. But that being said, I want to talk about the ways that I do mess up in life and ways that I've made reparations. I'm going to go through that every week. I do have an example for this week that I'm not proud of. So we'll segue into that real quick. I was at the grocery store and I was just kind of in a rush, right? You know, Paige is at work. She was doing her thing and got my AirPods in. You know, I'm doing my own thing. I'm thinking about a dish that I'm going to make for the night. I was trying to make French onion soup pasta, which is like something I thought about, like my own little creation. Like I wanted to make, got a burp, hold on. Thank you. I wanted to make French onion soup pasta, which was just something of my own creation. You know, take all the ingredients of French onion soup, but make it into a sauce, like make it into a cream with a roux, do the whole thing, maybe some chicken, even though it uses beef stock, you know, something. I'm experimenting, right? So like I'm deep in my head. I'm thinking fat about how I'm going to make this pasta. I got all my ingredients. The thing is heavy. And it was like thing after another. One, boom, boom, boom. I'm buying dry sherry. It's alcohol because it's cooking wine. And so the thing goes off and the lady's got to come over and I'm like already more bothered about that than I should be. So then the next thing comes up and the onions don't scan right. So then that's another thing she's got to come over for. And now I'm already like, oh, another thing. Next thing you know, it's like the third thing comes up. And to be honest with you, I can't remember what it was. It was something that doesn't even matter. Momentary. Not momentous in any way. It was momentary. And I said some profanities, man. I bleeped all that out and I covered my mouth because I'm ashamed of what I said in the moment. And the worst part is like when I looked up, the lady was like standing right in front of me and it looks like I said it to her. And she kind of looked at me like, whoa. And I definitely did not want to like draw attention to myself, make this into a thing. And I was super embarrassed that like I allowed some onions to affect me like that. Like that's some little boy stuff right there. Like that's real weak stuff. And so I looked her dead in her eyes, full of shame, and I was like, ma'am, I'm really sorry that I said that. That was a wild overreaction, and that was just really immature, and I'm really sorry that I said all that in front of you. I'm just really bothered by this experience, and I know none of that is your fault, and it's just me getting frustrated at technology, which, if you ask my wife, is the way that I get frustrated the most. I get frustrated in my day-to-day life, mostly by technology, because in my mind, I'm like, it just should work, right? It was programmed to work. Why is it not working? I have very little grace for technology. So yeah, you know, she's like, hey, that's all good. Don't worry about it. I hate this thing too, yada, yada. She's making all these excuses for me, right? She helps me. She fixes the thing. She scans her card. She boom, 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 wizard lady. And then she fixes it all. And then even at the very end, I tell her one more time, I'm like, hey, I just really want to apologize. I hope that kind of energy doesn't affect your day. And as embarrassed as I was, I could tell that like my response to what I said meant so much more to her than what I said initially. And I think like her witnessing my like immense humility and my immense like embarrassment and my desire to make reparations for someone that like I owe nothing to, like generally, right? She's just the woman that checks the thing out. But I could tell that she was like, hey, you know, it really is okay. And like, it's all going to be good. And so I did that, you know, I fucked that up pretty bad. You know, that was a really embarrassing moment for me, but I don't want to hide that kind of stuff. I want to talk about that stuff with you guys. And I'm hoping that I can create a space that's like vulnerable and humble enough for you guys to kind of share that stuff with me, and we could keep each other accountable. I think that could be a lot of fun and just honest and not manufactured, you know? Gosh, I said I was going to talk about this at the end, but I feel like this is a natural segue into it. So I'm just going to get into it. See, we're learning. This is all brought on by like, I'm in like just a transitional place in my life. I'm going to stand up. I've been in a transitional place in my life now for a hot minute. I'll give a little life update. You know, 2 years ago, I quit my job as a full-time pastor at a church in downtown Phoenix, which has been an amazing decision. Like, not because I don't want to be a pastor anymore, just because I felt like I was in a transition at that point, and I took a leap of faith and I worked it out. Excuse me. The last day I was on staff was the day before my wedding, which was super cool. And I'm really appreciative that the church was helpful in like getting that segue, you know, as smooth as possible, whatever. So for like the last 2 years, I've been in a transition period in like very physical ways, doing different things, working different places. And I'll kind of get into that later about like what I'm up to these days. But in like the last 2 months, I've felt very transitional, like emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, which I think has caused me in the last month to be more introspective than I've probably ever been. I've spent way more time thinking about myself, not in like a selfish way, like in a very introspective way. The way that I move through the world and the way that the world moves through me, right? Which I think everyone should. I think you should spend as much time introspectively as you can. Take stock about who you are, how you are, the way that you affect people, the way that people experience you. I think that's like wildly important, and I think we should all be taking stock of that stuff every single day. But I've been doing way more of it than I typically have. I've been like thinking about my childhood. I've been analyzing my past. I'm analyzing my future, thinking about where I'm going, like what I'm going to be doing with my life. And I think that's like pretty typical like turn of the century stuff. You know, like I'm going to be 30 in like a year, which is sick. I'm so stoked to be 30. But I've been thinking more about that than I think I generally do. And I had someone ask me at my job, which I'll crack into that later, what I'm doing for work right now. Someone asked me at the start of the year, they were like, yo, what are your like New Year's resolutions? And I'm like a huge no resolution guy. I think resolutions are a cop-out. No offense if you have resolutions, but also it's still a cop-out. I think if you want to change, there's no excuse, just change. Just do it. If you feel like, oh, this year I want to start doing something and you need January 1st to put you there, bro, you got your priorities in the wrong place. If you feel led to be something new, don't wait for a New Year excuse. Just do it. And if you don't do it, then you obviously didn't want to change. So that's kind of what I told him in a little bit more diplomatic way, because I didn't want to like shoot him down, right? Because if he has resolutions, I didn't want to be like, oh, resolutions, bro, you're an idiot for resolutions. You know, I didn't want to like, that's not the vibe, right? So I just graciously told him, I was like, I'm not a resolution guy. And somehow in the midst of this moment, I was able to piece together what I think, foreshadowing, now looking back, hindsight 2020, was absolutely the like log line of my life, like the summary of how I want to be as a person. And so much so that it's spiraled me these last 2 months of the year into being these things, like hyper being these things. And now it's going to take up what I think is going to be majority of this video podcast is I want to inspire people for these 3 things in particular, because these 3 things are by far the most important things to me. In the way that I move through the world and the way that the world moves through me is I want to be, in this order, thankful. I think I've been talking about gratitude for a super long time. Every time that I have to give the Devo at CCV, which for like any of my CCV homies that go and play there, like, you know what I'm talking about for Devo. I generally always share something about thankfulness, because I think like gratitude, thankfulness is the most important thing in our walk through life, whether you're a believer or not a believer. And I want this to be a very open space for non-believers, believers, doesn't even matter. I'm just going to talk about things that are universal, whether you believe in God the Father or not. But I think thankfulness and gratitude can literally solve any problem. And I'm not saying it's going to solve it's not going to cure your cancer, but it's going to solve the way that you move through having cancer. Like gratitude and thankfulness will 100% solve anything. At least it'll solve you. It'll solve the way that you're feeling through anything. So thankfulness is like my number one thing. Every single day, I want to be in debt to gratitude. I want to have more things to be thankful for than I can give thanks for. Like constantly, like I'm always in debt to gratitude. I got to write more and more checks than the gratitude can cash. Am I right? That's ultimately what I want to be so thankful for. Shout out to Wendell. My boy Wendell, if you're watching this, you know who you are. Every time that we talk, he always asks me first thing. He's like, "What are you thankful for today?" Before we get into anything, like he'll call me on the phone and he'll like ask me about some like worship thing or whatever. But before we even get into business, he's like, "Dude, what are you thankful for today?" And that years ago started snowballing in my head to like being more and more aware of what I'm thankful for. So anyway, that's my number one. That's T. Thankfulness. I think when you're thankful and your heart is full of gratitude, it's going to lead you naturally into the second thing, and that is generous. Because when you realize truly how much you have, I think that's going to naturally move you into a space where you realize like, well, how can I give then? Like if I have so much, how can I leverage what I have for other people? And that's generosity. That is literally generosity. That is the next thing I want to be. Every single day when I move through the world, my prayer to God is, Lord, help me be thankful, help me be generous, and then through that generosity, help me be kind. Me and Paige have had some like really random, for those who don't know, Paige is my wife. Really, maybe I'll put a photo of her up on the screen or something. Really random interactions recently with some people, and like the feedback that me and Paige have gotten is like, "Oh man, you guys have been so kind." And I was like, wow, that's a really like specific word to use. And because I've been thinking about kindness so much, the fact that they would use that word it just sticks out to me even more. But it's always been in situations where I'm like, dude, I'm not even doing anything. Like I'm genuinely not acting a different way or saying anything out of the ordinary. I'm just like moving through the world like normal, right? And people's feedback to us is that we're super kind. So I started like really diving into like kindness, like niceness versus kindness. And it's so much better to be kind. Like kind is momentous. Nice is momentary, right? It's just like, oh, I'm gonna hold the door open for you. Like that's nothing wrong with that, but that's just like whatever, that's right there. But kindness, like that changes people moving forward. That the kindness leads people to do some crazy stuff. Like when they feel like you're being kind to them, that like completely changes their demeanor and how they interact with you. And so for me, that's my three things: TGK, thankfulness, generosity, and kindness. So I think one of my segments every week for this thing is I want to talk about, and again, please hear this in the most like humble way possible. I think anyone who really knows me knows that I'm not like doing this, or this isn't coming from like a place of like, oh dude, look how dope I am, or like, look how thankful and gracious and kind I am. I just think that we need to be more honest about stuff like that, because I think when I'm generous and kind, that's inspirational, right? And that's going to inspire other people to be generous and kind. So every week, well, I don't say every week, a lot, most of the time, when I am thankful, generous, and kind, I want to write it down and I want to keep a journal. And I don't know if I'm going to do it at the beginning, if I'm going to do it at the end of the podcast. I'm still trying to figure out the flow and the ebb and flow of this thing. I don't know what's going to happen when, but at some point in these podcasts, I want to have like a segment specifically to share my little TGK journal and like talk about, hey, here's how I was thankful and generous and kind, but not so that people could be like, oh dude, what a saint, he's so generous, he gave those people $100, like let me like and comment and subscribe for this because he did that. That is 100% not the point. I'm not Mr. Beasting this thing. Also, I love Mr. Beast. It's not a dig. I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to be like, hey, I built 1,000 wells in Africa type vibe. That's not what I'm saying. Also, this isn't monetized, so like I'm not doing this for the views for money. I just want to create or do something that's honest, and hopefully through that inspire people to also realize how easy it is to be thankful and how easy it is to be generous and how easy it is to be kind. Because I'm not going to pick like, oh, I donated $1,000 to this organization this week. Like, that's not the ways that I'm being generous. And sometimes I will do that, right? Like if it's an honest moment, like I met a couple dudes at Lux that were sitting right next to me and I just overheard their conversation and they were talking about like putting together this event for these orphans. And like they shouted out people that I knew and like they were like name dropping people that I knew. And I was like, oh man, this is an organization that needs to help people and they're short on funds. So I give them money, right? But that wasn't like manufactured. Didn't like, there's no thumbnail that's like, today we're going to give away $100 to 100 people. Let's go find them. It was just God presented opportunity for me to be generous and I did it. I took it. And I want to write that down and I want to share that with you to help you become more mindful of that. Like just for you to see how easy it is to be generous, to just give someone a hug. Like that's generous, simple, easy, but man, that could be so meaningful. That's so momentous, right? That's the goal. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm thinking, don't hold me to this as I have every right to go back on this. I think I want to do it like release these every Friday. It's currently Monday and the idea is like talking about the week I just had and then putting it out on Friday because then it gives me time to like, you know, think about what I said and maybe if there's like some supplementary visuals or footage I could superimpose them on the TV. Something like that, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to find my rhythm. Maybe I record these on Wednesday, put it out Friday. So there's a little bit more immediacy to it, but I don't know. I feel like Friday's a good day because on Friday, everyone's kind of like, you know, they've experienced their week. It's easy for them to like analyze their TGKs, if we want to call it that. So yeah, Friday feels good. But I mean, what else? Did I have anything else on this list? Telling stories. Oh yeah. I mean, I wrote it down in a really clunky way, but summing up my goals, my 3 goals is to create content that inspires people to be more present in their lives. Important. 2 is provide a space for me and others to be vulnerable and honest with themselves, for sure. And 3, yeah, this is another big part of it. Have something that serves as a journal for me to look back on years from now. I used to journal a ton. I used to talk about a lot about like my life just in these books. They're over off screen, but I have tons and tons and tons of journals of my life over the years, like silly poems I would write for girls I had a crush on in high school and just like updates to what was going on, who I liked, who I didn't like, you know, just simple things. You're like, oh, my first time playing at church. Like I remember my first Sunday I played drums in Main Sanctuary at Phoenix First Assembly. And like, I've got like a whole journal entry for that. Maybe one of these days I'll go through a couple of my really positive entries or like momentous journeys, journal entries on here. Maybe there's some stuff that like back then they were like goals and dreams I had that like maybe nowadays I've fulfilled or I'm on the brink of fulfilling. Maybe that could be encouraging and uplifting. But yeah, since I don't feel like writing anymore, I like doing this. So I think this is going to be my journal. I could look back on these, have a couple dozen episodes of these that like 5 or 10 years from now, I can just like look at and be like, oh dude, that was a good time in life. That was a good little place. But I think to wrap it up, I'll kind of fill you guys in a little bit on, now that I've got the goals and dreams and vision for the podcast out of the way, I will share a little bit about what I've been up to and kind of fill you guys in on my life post New City, the church I was on staff at. 2 years ago, this month actually, yeah, like 20 days from now, it'll be 2 years exactly. My wife and I got married, and our wedding was the day after my last day on staff. So I took kind of like the first month of my marriage just off, just like full reset, just like wanted to see new things, experience new things. And I mean, that was really the goal of me stepping down from ministry, was like, there was just so many things I wanted to still see and do, that I felt like, you know, ministry was really taking up every ounce of my time in a really beautiful way. And I wouldn't trade any minute of it. I would do it all again exactly the same way. But I just wanted to experience some other things, like professionally, work on some other kinds of projects, but also personally, just like have some more time to like spend at other places and hanging out with people I wouldn't normally get to hang out with, and just kind of like see how far I could fly type vibe. But I took that first month off, dude, and I just hung out with my wife, new life, like just like a hard reset, right? New wife, new life type vibe. And then eventually started getting that creative itch again. And me and a couple homies like started up this like little business, X Mono. I'm sure some of you guys have like seen our posts and stuff like that, where we were doing a lot of like freelance creative work for people and working with artists and, you know, playing shows, doing music videos, that kind of thing. It was super awesome. And we did that for like a year. And I kind of hit a point where I was like, man, I kind of went out of one grind and into another, like just immediately. Like I didn't really change the scenery that much. Like I was still doing the same creative stuff I was doing when I was a pastor, but just now like more, and I'm making less money. And so like the stress of that just like still compounded. And it's like, yeah, I might've been sleeping better on Saturday nights, but I was not sleeping as well on other nights because we still needed to make money. And I wasn't, you know, it's the first year of a business, right? So you're really scraping by. And so then I kind of hit this point where like, you know, some things had shifted for Paige, and her career path wasn't panning out the way that we were initially hoping, but that's okay. And I think that was actually really good for her. I think that was a growing experience for her. Maybe I'll have her on here one of these days and she could talk about that. But it kind of hit a point where I was like, I need just like a full shakeup. I need a hard 180. I need completely new sites. So I took a step back from X Mono and I got a job at a local game store. I'll put the logo up on the screen. These are my boys right here, dude. These are my guys. And I'd love to tell a lot of stories about some people I've met, some things I've experienced there at Tabletop. Genuinely one of the best working experiences I've ever had. And I'm hoping a lot of my fun stories will be about people that I've met there. But yeah, got a little part-time job. I'm there 2 days a week. Nothing crazy, but I'm just hanging out. I'm involved in the community. Instead of running rehearsals, I'm running tournaments and just loving on people there. And dude, it's honestly so amazing. I teach people how to play card games. I purchase cards. I do some inventory stuff. But honestly, dude, I'm just like hanging out with people. I'm checking in with people. I'm seeing how their weeks are going. I'm showing love to people and trying to be generous and kind to them. And it is genuinely the happiest I've maybe ever been. So I've been doing that now for like, I don't know, since August of last year. You guys could do the math. I'll put the math on the screen. Yeah, it's amazing. I absolutely love it. So I play out on the weekends. I pick up miscellaneous gigs during the week. But then on Tuesdays and Fridays, dude, I'm at Tabletop. I'm throwing down, playing hella Magic, just having a good time, meeting a bunch of new people, teaching new people how to play games. It is amazing. I can't say enough about it. And I'm sure that I'll talk extensively about my experiences at Tabletop as this series continues. But I mean, that's what I'm up to right now. We bought a house here in Surprise in May of last year. So we're coming up on a year living in this house, and I absolutely love it. This is such a beautiful home. A lot of space for us to grow, more space than we need at the moment, which is encouraging because the house that we moved out of in downtown Phoenix was definitely cutting it close on space. So it was great for like a single dude. It was awesome. But then having a second person in there and having all her hobbies and stuff like that just felt cluttered. You know, it didn't fit for us. So this has been a nice transition. Slower paced life out here in Surprise. The way I've kind of described it to people is I feel like I've gone from a samurai to a farmer, you know? Like I hung up the sword, I picked up the plow. I'm just doing simple stuff. I'm not traveling nearly as much. I'm not doing nearly as many high profile things. I'm not like making as many public appearances as I used to. But dude, there's something so nice about it. I genuinely, the slowness of all of this is so refreshing. I had Costco for lunch, man. I had Costco. It was amazing. Said a cherry blossom, had Costco. Easier on the wallet, tougher on the tummy, but whatever, dude. You make it work. So yeah, it's been a nice change of pace. Paige is crushing right now. Her journey has like fully come full circle, and it's been awesome. She's at work right now. Today she has 2 jobs. She's a tattoo artist 3 days a week at a spot in downtown Phoenix, and then on the other 3 days she works at like this high-end vintage store. So I got these awesomely used pants. Here, I'll give you a little. These are my Sherwin-Williams specials. If you can't tell, my Sherwin-Williams. Some man put a lot of hard work and a lot of hours into these pants for me to sit on the couch and talk about my privileged life in them. So shout out to that guy. I love these pants. So also my Padme shirt. If you saw, got to keep Bae with me at all times. This is one of my new favorite shirts. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I wear it all the time now. But dude, I'm probably going to talk about Star Wars a lot on this podcast because Star Wars is the greatest media of all time. And anyone who doesn't believe that, I think will start to believe that by the end of this podcast. Not this episode, but when I hang up the cable, when I hang up the mic at the end of all this, I think every single one of my viewers is going to be like, dude, he was right. Star Wars is the greatest media that's been ever created. Where's my boy? Do I got Darth close? Oh, that's Anakin, and when he's fighting off Darth Vader internally against Obi-Wan. I got that. Dude, here, hold on. Not that you guys asked for this, but I got Anakin's lightsaber. So technically, back in the day, this came out in when Revenge of the Sith came out. It's clear because it lights up both red and blue. So sick, dude. I've also got Obi-Wan's down there as well. So yeah, we'll crack into some Star Wars here pretty soon. I got all these are my minifig collection. Got a whole bunch of Anakins and Obi-Wans in there. We'll crack into that as well. A little Avatar, Last Airbender. Not the live action, the animated, the real Avatar. I've got Pot of Greed. Nice little Yu-Gi-Oh card. Pot of Greed. Yeah, we'll crack into some stuff. I'm probably going to change up what's up here, get some different stuff up there. Got my Destiny stuff and some Dragon Ball Z stuff, but yeah, we got some vinyl records. I want to talk about music too at some point. Maybe I'll do an entire podcast on why The First Days of Spring by Noah and the Whale is the greatest collection of songs ever assembled. I'm not saying it's the best album of all time. I'm just saying it's the best collection of. Anyway, we'll get into that at some point. We'll talk about movies. I'll tell you why Her is the greatest movie of all time. I'll probably talk about that at some point. Who knows? Anyway, I'm probably going to call it here because it's been 30-ish minutes, and I feel like that's long enough. So anyway, thanks for watching this. If you watched all of it, you're a real one. I think this is going to be a really fun series. So appreciate you all. I got to come up with a sign-off, like a Ron Burgundy, you stay classy, San Diego type vibe. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to work on it. So be present in your life. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.